It's time now for the West Holmes Knights Football Weekly Preview Show, brought to you by Millersburg Tire.
This week's Knights Football Weekly Preview Show brought to you by Millersburg Tire Service. I'm Matt Croy alongside Jake Sidle. West Holmes, their first victory of the year as they got it in Knights Stadium over the Orrville Red Riders by the score of 20-20. And Jake, of course, the Red Riders, a big rally in that fourth quarter. It wasn't enough. And West Holmes got themselves a big victory on Friday night.
And I think that's when West Holmes set the tone early on in that game. And they really just did what they needed to do to get the win. Yeah, Orrville started rallying, but by the time they got their feet underneath them, it was too late for them to respond. So West Holmes, again, getting a big win in Week 2 over Orrville.
And Keaton Leppla talked before the season how he wants to run the football this year. They did that on Friday night. 180 yards on the ground, a couple of touchdown runs. Of course, Brody Bowman led the way individually along with Lynn Klein. That was the individual guys leading the way, but also really as a whole, the O-line really controlling the line of scrimmage.
And that's huge. You know, we've seen the last couple of years, this has been more of a pass and air attack offense. And now the offensive line needs to kind of adjust to that. They want to run the rock more. They've got to get on their blocks, and they did a great job of it Friday night.
And junior quarterback Braden Parsons, a pair of touchdown passes, and good to see him be even more comfortable in Week 2.
Just because you want to run the football more doesn't mean you can't also have a good passing attack. And I think we're just going to see more from this young man as he grows throughout the season. They've got a lot of great defenses they're going to play. They're going to need to move the ball in different ways, and he's going to be a big key in that offense.
And how about the West Holmes defense holding Orrville just 50 yards to the ground, so they also did the job.
When you can hold the Orrville Red Riders to 50 yards running, you got a good chance to win that football game. Orrville, even when they are a more passing-centric offense, they love to run the ball. They've had some running backs that have gone and played well at the college level over the years, so if you're able to get in there and hold them to 50 yards, you're going to put yourself in a position to win that game.
That's getting it done, and West Holmes, as a result, now 1-1 of the season. They'll play their first road game of the year this Friday night. Alongside West Holmes Knights head football coach Keaton Leppla coming off their first victory of the year by the score of 20-20, and I can't have to imagine just the air in the building is always different, right, when after you get off a win like you did last week.
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely, there's that little bit of sigh of relief. The monkey's off your back. You feel good about how your team responded after that tough Week 1 loss. So, there's a lot of good things that we saw schematically. We saw us shore some things up with the offensive line. We were getting a 7-8 man box, still able to have success. Defensively, we had guys flying around, a couple of touchdowns or, blown coverages or, miscommunications. But, we feel like we're in a really good spot here. And I think the biggest thing from, last week to this week is let's see how we respond after we win. Do we see the same amount of growth that we saw between Week 1 and Week 2? And that's really what we're stressing this week.
Well, you mentioned the offensive line here. I wonder about that in terms of just how much do you see just in terms of the cohesion from Week 1 to Week 2 and how guys can kind of gel together to be able to create the holes they did last week?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, the biggest stress for us is over-communicate up front. I've talked to you about communicating on defense. It's the same with our offensive line. Those guys are starting to communicate with one another. Those guys are starting to, during the school day, their study halls, they're starting to get together. They're starting to talk through fronts and things like that. So I think that's the biggest step forward with that group. It's not only their confidence. They got one game under their belt. They know what varsity football is going to be like. But now the confidence piece and the understanding and the working together is the huge improvement and something that we only expect to get better as the year goes on.
Of course, that helped out with the running game, but also the passing game as well. Braden Parsons, your junior quarterback, a pair of touchdown passes. I have to imagine that goes a long way to help towards his confidence also early part of the year.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Braden was great. We sat in film all day, and, I heard guys behind me during film going, man, it's just he's getting the ball out so quick. He's putting it right on the dot. With our pass game, it was a lot of that. It was all that short screen game, but we said he's a young kid. We want to get him going. We want to get those short, quick throws, and he did a fantastic job of make his pre-snap read, catch the ball, get it out, let playmakers make plays. Along with that, I have to shout out our wide receivers. It wasn't huge wide receiver numbers. There wasn't a bunch of catches across the board, but you look at guys like Matt Kraft out there, Rhett Cheney, Coy Beachy, Reed Hawksworth, Lynn, all those guys who played receiver. Even if the ball wasn't in their hands, those guys were blocking their tails off. And, they're just as much as our offensive line, they're the reason we were able to have success out on on the perimeter with our screen game.
Well, you mentioned the defense. The defense, of course, putting the shutout in that second and third quarters and really overall making the big plays when they had to.
Yeah, I think defensively what I love to see is, those guys were running all over the place. Those guys were delivering blows from very first snap to that very last snap. But the biggest thing I'm proud of is our guys were doing their job. They were doing how they were taught, and they had a ton of success with it. They were relentless. They were celebrating. They were having a good time. That's exactly what we want West Holmes defense to be like. You're going to fly around. You make a mistake, you still fly, put a big hit on, whether it's 8 yards downfield, and you just slowly wear those guys out, and they get tired of getting hit like that. So really excited about the step. I think we made a big step forward defensively, even though we've had 2 pretty good weeks of defense, but this week was a huge step forward, and it's something that we are going to have to rely on heavily this week is our defensive side of the ball to get after those guys.
Well, you mentioned this week, of course, you get the win. You take on Dover. Dover, always a challenge. They're a great program. Of course, new head coach this year, but certainly expect nothing less than a good Dover team again this Friday.
Yeah, I see all the stats, 0-7 all time versus Dover. I lost to him as a player. I've lost to him as a coach. So, it's definitely one that, we want to get, and the year before they come into conference play. So this is a huge one. Again, new leadership, but that place is tradition. That place is a perennial program with a ton of success. And when you walk over there, you're going to be in for a dogfight. And the biggest thing for our kids is we got to focus on ourselves and what we do and how we execute and how we do our job, and don't get caught up in who your opponent is. We really are trying to focus on ourselves this week, and we want to beat that growth we had from week 1 to week 2. We want to grow even more from 2 to 3. So it's definitely going to be a challenge. It's definitely we're going to have to play some really good football to get this win, but I'm really excited for our kids with this momentum that we have to go in and carry on what we're doing.
Keaton, thanks for your time. Good luck this Friday.
Thank you.
Jake Sidle here with the entire West Holmes starting offensive line. Going from my right, we have center Parker Hawksworth, guard Cheston Cooper, and Max Coakley, and tackle Zach Hustack and Bowden McCulley. And we'll start things off with you, Parker. A great night for the offensive line on Friday against the Red Riders. What can you tell us about how your team started, or how your team did in this game?
We did good. We came out there, we started moving bodies. We threw some pancakes in there. We got the job done.
Okay, we'll go on to Cheston now.
What really helped us was we communicated a lot better, so we all knew which guy we were getting.
And Max?
Yeah, we knew coming from last week from week 1 to week 2, we knew it had to be on us to win this game, and we just had to go out there and do our jobs, and we got the outcome we wanted.
Zach?
Yeah, definitely communication was a big one during that game, and being more physical up front and just being ready to go, more prepared this week.
And Bowden?
Yeah, we came in this game knowing they were going to be big and tough, and we just had to out-physical them, move bodies for Brody.
So last year's offensive line, you had a lot of talent graduate, and you guys have all kind of stepped up to fill those holes. What have you guys been working on to make sure there's that seamless transition as the new offensive line comes in here? We'll start with you, Bowden.
We've just been working as hard as we can in practice, trying to fill those shoes, just every day giving 100% effort.
Zach?
Yeah, definitely learning the plays, making sure we're fluent with everything, and communication, definitely a big one.
Max?
Yeah, so I was the only returning starter this year, the only senior with all these juniors. So I guess my job's kind of different from all of them. I'm kind of the teacher. Got to make sure everyone's doing their job and knows what they're doing.
Justin?
We just came in, we need to know our stuff, and we rep it a lot to make sure we are as fluent as we can with it. We definitely over-communicate to make sure everyone knows what they're doing, because it's all a little bit new for all of us except Max.
And Parker?
Coming in as a junior, we're pretty much all new O-line. You got to just work hard in the weight room. You got to work hard out of school, and you just got to really give it your best and just work hard.
Guys, we know Dover on Friday is going to be a tough test for everyone, but they're going to be sending a lot of pressure on that defensive line. What are you guys doing to prepare? Again, we'll start with Parker.
Just same stuff every week, kind of. You're just working hard. Go as hard as you can in Indy and just rep out and just keep getting reps all week as much as you can.
Cheston?
This week, we're really going to focus on communicating and keeping our eyes up to see platoon backers coming from wherever they send them to make sure we pick them up so we don't have a sack.
Max?
Yeah, so we know they got a bunch of athletes over there, so we just have to stick to our technique and do our job and just go out there and play football at the end of the day.
Zach?
Yep, definitely got to do our job, stay disciplined to where we're at, make sure we're getting depth on our kick steps and stuff like that.
And Bowden?
Yeah, we're going in this game knowing they're going to be big, tough, coached well, and we're just preparing as hard as we can for their physicality.
Guys, thanks for your time. Good luck Friday against Dover.
Well, if you're looking for tires, there's no better place to go than Millersburg Tire Service. They've been in business for over 72 years. That's right, Millersburg Tire Service. You're looking for whatever tires you're looking for. They have all the tires and brands, including Firestone. Of course, they have ag tires in service, fully equipped auto service, also semi-truck tires as well. Stop by and see them off of State Route 39 east of Millersburg or on the web, millersburgtireservice.com. Well, Dover comes in with a record of 1-1 of the year under the direction of first-year head coach Matt Reese, fresh off their loss 28-22 to Maple Heights last Friday. That was after their season-opening victory over Glen Oak by the score of 18-12. Of course, last year, the final year under head coach and legendary head coach Dan Iff for Dover, and it was all Dover in Knight Stadium as they led 21-2 at halftime and eventually defeated the Knights by the score of 42-9. The lone touchdown scored by West Holmes quarterback Morgan Smith, a 2-yard score in that fourth quarter, and that was it. And for Dover, they would go on eventually to the regional semifinals where they fell to Steubenville from a season ago. Alongside Jake Sidle once again, and for West Holmes, it was tough sledding over the years, 0-7 all time versus Dover, and always a challenge to take on this Dover program.
And it's a program with a whole lot of history of putting out good, talented players. And you're going into their house this year. It's always a tough place to play in Dover, but with this West Holmes defense, the way we've seen them play in the first two games, causing some turnovers, I think they've got a chance to really go in and make some noise.
That's the thing. You look at the week one, obviously a very good try-away team. West Holmes had a chance to win that game. They end up losing, come back against a good Orville team that has high aspirations this year. They get a win there. So if you feel like you're West Holmes, you're battle-tested in the first 2 weeks, and you can see what happens here on the road against Dover.
And it'll be interesting to see what the Tornadoes will look like this year. Like you said, legendary head coach steps aside and someone new coming in. Of course, someone that's been involved in the Dover program before, but you don't know really what you're going to see. Things are going to be a little bit different from years past, and really it's just going to be West Holmes adjusting in the game. I think that's going to be the difference in this one.
And first road game of the year as well, so you can see how West Holmes will handle that road environment.
The good thing is West Holmes fans will travel, especially when it's just down the road to Dover, and this is going to start becoming a conference rivalry next year when Dover joins the OCC in football. So I think this is going to be a big preview of big matchups to come.
Don't miss it, of course, this Friday night. We'll be live on FM 95.3 and WKLM-FM.com. Our hometown football Friday night pregame show begins at 6 p.m. Kickoff is at 7 o'clock. Reminder, we'll also have video stream coverage of the game, but it'll be on delay. We'll have to have that on delay after the game this Friday night on YouTube, so look for that sometime after the game. We'll have the game on YouTube as well after the contest on Friday night. Well, that's been this week's Night Football Weekly Preview Show. It's been brought to you by Millersburg Tire Service.
Thank you for watching the West Holmes Knights Football Weekly Preview Show, brought to you by Millersburg Tire.